Hello, and welcome back to This is the Year. This is the 40th episode, and at the same time, it is also a forecasting episode. So, in the last week's one, we talked about 2025, and in today's episode, together with me again, Joao, we are going to be talking about 2026. We will be breaking down our biggest predictions into the biggest business winners, into the biggest AI use cases for 2026. We're going to be talking about country winners, best performing assets, most ambitious AI projects, hottest technology, and, as always, the hottest conspiracy elements into AI for 2026. With me today, you're already dressed in a Christmas sweater. I'm still rocking the white shirt, but at least I'm in some Swiss Christmas market virtually. Joao, how are you doing? Are you already a little bit sick?
A little bit sick. I usually get sick once or twice a year. I didn't get sick this year yet, so the body just decided to get sick just once for tax purposes. Just make
When
sure
you have like a
it
break,
happens
it's
just once.
like that's exactly when the virus is kicking. I'm still trying to like drink a lot of fresh orange juice. That's usually my countermeasures for sickness. But let's see this year if I can evade the viruses. But yeah, good to have you again, Joao. Let's kick it off. The first category. Last week, again, we looked into 2025. We did some sort of retrospective, and now we're looking ahead. So this is a little bit the prediction episode. So we first start with the biggest business winner for 2026. I have some name noted down, some company noted down, but who do you have in the roster? Well, who might be the biggest winner next year?
I mean, there are a few candidates. I think it won't be OpenAI. They might get to some, beginning of the year success with their new modes. We'll talk about it soon. But I think Google has placed the cards all on the table and set up the game so that they will have an amazing year in 2026 in terms of basically integrating people and pulling people from ChatGPT, from Claude, from Perplexity, all back into the Google ecosystem. Google has done what Microsoft has been doing for years, which is creating the ecosystem where you don't ever have to leave Google. So you have your email, your calendar, your AI, your internet, your search. So I think they have every single piece on the table to make it work, but we'll see. I mean, to have that kind of infrastructure for millions of people, it's still very expensive. They have the profit to maintain it. Will they have the profit to keep it going for the whole 2026 and to keep it going for the additional millions of customers that they want to get from ChatGPT and from all the other platforms? I think they can. We'll see.
TBD. I mean, it only took 40 episodes that we agree on one thing. So I'm also actually believing the biggest business winner for 2026 is Google. Also from a different perspective, mostly from infrastructure standpoint. Recently, they announced a collaboration with Meta. So they have PyTorch, that's the open source machine learning library that has been basically in the ownership hands of Meta. And now they're basically collaborating with Google, Meta, and Google together to be launching Torch TPU to take on a hit again on NVIDIA's CUDA. And this might be, again, a play into infrastructure. They have their TPU architectures that they're going to be fabricating again with TSMC. It could be another second winner maybe for 2026. Broadcom as well is in the loop there, and some other companies we talked about a few weeks ago. But I also believe Google might be in an incredible good position for 2026 also because they haven't really played the card of the google.com push, I believe. Because if you still go to google.com, they haven't really been pushing too much into like, hey, please use Gemini or go into the AI mode. So this card is kind of still on the table and they might actually be playing it for next year. There's this AI mode, I quickly pointed that out now, but it's not really been pushed heavily onto the google.com like front page. Please use our AI or please use other services by Google.
They have been integrating it into search results. Every time I search something,
passively, exactly.
9 out of 10 times you have Gemini, like some kind of summary, which I think a lot of websites are upset about because it just makes you not go to the websites anymore because you have the information all there. But again, I imagine that's somewhat expensive to run like a Gemini call for every single search. I think they do a couple billion per day. We'll see. But I'll let you keep going your theory. I want to read about it.
I mean, it's basically what you said. So there's this triangulation infrastructure. Again, TPU plus Torch TPU, the software stack on top. There's the modeling capabilities, mostly led by DeepMind, Gemini being the cutting edge best model that we have today on the 23rd of December, the day that we're shooting the episode. Gemini is the best model, maybe not for coding. There might be more a Claude model, but again, Gemini, incredibly good model. And then also they have the reach. They have the platform, they have all the devices, they have Android, they have Google.com, they have Gmail, they have a big array of other services they can easily integrate step by step these AI services. The question is, can they make as much money as they did with the ad-based business model? TBD. But I think from a business perspective, I believe, again, Google might be the winner for 2026. Who do you have as a loser? I mean, you maybe mentioned one or two already.
I mean, not as much as a loser, but I wanted to mention the candidates for the biggest businesses winners, besides Google, which is, I think, becoming obvious to more and more people. My second and third candidates would be unnamed hardware companies, because I think people realized a few months ago how reliant they are on NVIDIA. NVIDIA stock shot up, and it's been up quite a bit. Sometimes it fluctuates, but people don't want to be over-reliant on one single company, and so they are trying to diversify their investment. They are trying to go to AMD. They're trying to go to whatever hardware company. Even Google is getting into the inference business. Previously, they only did it for themselves. Maybe they're opening up some commercial relationships so that they can do inference for other companies and they can rent out their hardware. That means if you have a hardware company or hardware startup that promises inference, even if you don't get as big as Google, as big as NVIDIA, I mean, that might take a while, you may get some easy funding because companies do want to be diversified and they want to have alternative sources. Even AMD has gotten really big contracts with Grok, and they don't have the hardware that's comparable to NVIDIA. So it's not as efficient, it's not as good, but it doesn't really matter because they just want to have different sources. Overbet on NVIDIA than just they're one decision away from being cut off. I think that's a good thing. Maybe some European startup might set up to the plate. I think there'll be a Chinese startup that will catch at least some of the hardware inference demographic. We'll see.
That could be an interesting play. And for losers, who would you say are the losers for 2026?
We might have a little bit of a loss on the side of OpenAI. They had the crown and they were in the podium since the beginning. I mean, they're a really big company. They're heavily funded. I think they lost the edge that they had once. So they had the best models and everyone went to them for the best chat, for the best connection. People have been complaining about the personality of GPT and they're trying really hard to conciliate both whatever business persona businesses want for their projects. Like they want a really reliant model that adheres to your instructions and it's super formal. And people, like normal people, private clients, want a friendly AI. Someone that's, compliments them time to time, not overly often, but that's friendly enough to have a conversation and to basically be your buddy. And I think OpenAI has been trying to decide and trying to catch both markets, both the private market and the business markets, and it's not working out for them. They're losing the business market to Anthropic, they're losing some to Google, and the private clients a lot of them are going to Google next year. So we'll see. I think they'll have to decide whether they're going to the private client or the business clients. Not sure what's most profitable for them because they have, I think, the biggest stake in the private sector. I mean, everyone loves ChatGPT. It's not going to go away anytime soon. I don't think they're going to go under. I think they're might lose a few clients, a few users.
I mean, potentially they might be IPO next year. Although Sam Altman stated recently on, I think it was on BG2 podcast, that they might go public next year, but potentially not, maybe within 2027. Certainly they can't cross-finance it like Google can, like with GCP, Google Cloud Compute, they can easily cross-finance maybe some model development. Well, not easily, but they have some multi-billion-dollar run rate to, again, train the Geminis of the future, whereas GPT or OpenAI needs to actually be probably raising capital here and there because they're not fully profitable yet. At least that's what the rumor says. For me, the biggest loser might be Perplexity. I'm not 100% certain it might actually be, but just noted it down. I was an incredible fan by Perplexity very early on when they came out, but very honestly, I have not opened Perplexity in the last 6 months. whatsoever. Although I'm usually recommending using Perplexity to all of my AI students that I have at university, but me myself, I'm actually not really using Perplexity. Mostly because I'm super fine tuning Claude to my liking. So my Claude app on my Mac is really perfectly tuned for what I need it to be doing, coding, architecture, or other technical tasks. And I have OpenAI or Gemini for the writing tasks or some review again from code or other perspectives. Perplexity, I have not really used whatsoever. Sometimes I use it for finance, like financial questions. But again, I believe maybe could be a little bit of a loser because again, Google might be more on the forefront. Then again, the people are jumping back to the usual search. They're anyway used to Google. So maybe Perplexity is a little bit of a business loser.
It's all
You
about
agree
the
on
edges.
this, Roy?
I mean, the search, I think the search capability of Perplexity was their edge, like their one feature compared to ChatGPT and Gemini. As soon as ChatGPT got the search working, at least somewhat working, that you can pull from sources reliably, Perplexity kind of loses their edge. I think there's still fine tuning, and I think their search might still be maybe substantially better. I have to see benchmarks to make sure. But again, if you already have search, you have sources from Gemini, from ChatGPT, from Claude, then why go to the Perplexity? Which they're pulling probably an older model or just a copy of one of the other guys' models. So maybe they'll come up with new edge next year. But I think, yeah, Perplexity, I wasn't even on my radar anymore. So definitely 2026 might
That's
be a
not a
rough year
good
for them.
sign. It's not a good sign. Interesting that the Cursor and Versal, for example, they don't have that much, I guess, competitive pressure from Claude, for example, or from GPT. Whereas Perplexity, because they're really only focusing on search, they have some more competitive pressure. I would assume, because most like Cursor, Versal, they're using the same models like Perplexity, but the use case is different. One is for front-end engineering, the other one is for general engineering, and Perplexity is just in quotation marks search. So that's a little bit of an
Basically, yeah.
interesting back and forth. Then biggest actual AI use case or a new AI use case, something that might be more in the forefront of maybe agentic artificial intelligence for 2026. What do you think is on the roster? Maybe I can kickstart mine for a change. I do believe 2026 could be the year for XL AI agents. I mean, we have been mentioning that multiple times. I think the models are as good as they can possibly get to, at least for the perspective of December 2025, to be generating solidly well thought through Excel spreadsheets via Opus, the latest model by Claude. And at the same time, if the newest Claude model is coming out next year, I do believe that this might actually be again a 2, 3x, maybe 5x improvement on Excel spreadsheets. Anything associated to financial management, financial forecasting, risk management, risk forecasting that is somewhat done on an Excel, because again, the human would want to iterate on it. I think that could be an interesting use case. At the same time, we were talking about the rise of skill engineering as opposed to prompt and context engineering. So skill engineering could be heavily tied to Excels. For example, we would have an Excel builder skill, many other skills, like, for example, how to do due diligence, how to do some other best practice predefined as a company, but then again, packed and wrapped as a skill. So I do believe Excel agents might be taking over. Consultants be on the lookout, and skills are the kind of building block to really enable these more complex use cases. Who do you have, or what do you have as an actual new AI use case that's really going to be working?
I mean, I certainly expect for it to exist like Excel agents in the very near future. You've had agents take over search, take over like most writing tasks. Excel has been one of those things that you still have to copy paste whatever ChatGPT gives you back to your Excel software. So I expect to see a very strong connection between the two in the near future. However, for they show some demo, it sounds amazing, and you go see the actual product and doesn't live up to the expectations, but that's just how demos usually work. However, I do think they're getting better and better, and because they're focusing heavily on making them as humanoid as possible, that just makes the integration of robots in factories, in the workplace, a lot easier, because you don't have to build ramps, you don't have to build any kind of infrastructure for them. You can just deploy them on whatever businesses you have, whatever office you have, and they'll be around. maybe carrying papers, maybe faxing things over to the next office, maybe washing the dishes for Cyril. We'll see. But I think integrating these advancements in robotics with these new models in AI will be a pretty cool thing to see. Not sure if it will hit the market in 2026, at least the private market. We might see some applications in the commercial market, so Amazon logistics centers, that kind of highly repetitive human work. Then I'll see how good they are and how close we are to seeing them in our own houses.
I mean, it's probably, again, to the point. I was just recently talking to some friends in the engineering world that, I mean, there's a very high probability that in the next half a decade, let's say by 2030, we're so accustomed that everywhere there's like robots walking around. I think many people are not used to the grander scheme of maybe the picture, how they could actually shape the landscape of a city and everything. So there is certain robots walking around. But as far as we adapted in terms of speed to a global pandemic like we've had a few years ago, we might actually be in the same speed also adapting to the notion that there are as many robots walking around, be it in Zurich, in Lisbon, New York, Shanghai, wherever you're going. Different types of robots, different activities are going to be pursued by them. And it's certainly, a fascinating / interesting time to be alive, to be witnessing a revolution like this, and that they're being deployed not only in factories like the Tesla Optimus robot or the specific ones from Amazon into the logistics center, but also actually the real world purpose robots that, for example, Optimus can also be doing. Or you might actually get your surgery done by a robot. That's also a possibility.
I mean, so far, all the demos, I've seen them dance really well. I've seen them move really well.
Or fight.
Somehow or fight. Somehow, I think the hardest thing for them has been walking around as fluidly as humans do.
Or
Because
running.
I've seen them picking up stuff and moving them around, but whenever they get to just walking from point A to point B, they sometimes, fall over, trip something. That Russian robot demo had a bit of a hard time. Right, there's an amazing impression of what a drunk person will look like, but yeah, if they figure that out, then it's a whole new world for robots.
I think the holy grail, to my understanding, I'm not a mechatronics engineer, but I think it's the dexterity of the hands. And at least in the latest push of Tesla's presentations, the hands were incredibly well done. And I think once we solve the hands, we probably can solve everything else. They can be running, they can be lifting elements, and then again can be working like a human can in factories, doing surgeries in the future that are super precise, elements like that. Let's do a fast round. So I just mentioned the element, and you give me 1 or 2 words, and then we do it for
we'll
3
try.
questions. So biggest country winner, who do you have
For the future,
2026? Just one, next year's biggest country winner.
I think still China.
You're
I
still
think
on China.
that they still have the cards. Yeah,
I'm going
I'm
the
trying not to
nationalist
over-justify.
road, and I'm
Yeah,
taking
you're
my
going to.
own. I'm going to take my own country. I'm going with Switzerland because of the talent hub, and because it seems that a lot of companies are actually coming to Switzerland mostly for the talent. We have no AI infrastructure, at least not many. But I'm doing the nationalist route. Switzerland's going to be the biggest country winner. Probably many people in the comments will say this is absolutely not true. But I had to be nationalistic on one question.
At
Biggest
least one.
infrastructure winner. Who do you have, or what type of infrastructure?
I mean, I don't think it'll be Europe, just because of how fragmented Europe usually is and all the regulations around it. Either the US or, as you mentioned, and I think I know your answer, which is Saudi Arabia, because they do have a lot of power, they do have a lot of land. Either could be either of the two. I think the US already has a lot of it, but Saudi Arabia is certainly trying to get into that podium.
I mean, I was like 50-50. Chinese memory, so the Chinese Micron, the Chinese SK Hynix, or Saudi Arabia, just in general. I'm probably going for the Chinese memory because, like, we've had this constraint a little bit as we've discussed in the last episode. Yeah, there was Micron, and we kind of actually needed more memory. And I believe China might be facing a similar bottleneck early to mid 2026. So I'm going with Chinese memory, a company. Then, most ambitious AI project. Also, just 1-2 words. What might be the most ambitious one?
Education. I've seen people trying to come up like one teacher for one student. I think it could be a very good idea. It can fail in 1,000 different ways. So, really depends on how it's done. But it's certainly ambitious. I mean, the scale of it, the implications of it. But it's probably one of the biggest ambitious projects that are out there, up and running, or at least being built.
I mean, that's a good pick. I mean, a really good friend of mine is actually working at a Google-backed startup where they're actually trying to really achieve that. So education using large language models, and it's really a challenge, at least from what I hear a little bit behind the background, behind the scene, to actually make it work. My most ambitious AI project is suborbital data centers. Probably not going to happen, but I see so much buzz around. Yeah, we're actually doing inference in space. Probably not in 2026, but I just put it as the most ambitious one. It makes a lot of sense because of cooling. The question is, do we solve latency? Probably yes. And do we actually solve the launch quantities that we need? Maybe also yes, but maybe not in 2026. That's why, again, most ambitious. And then the last question of today's episode, just the usual one. Do we reach AGI in 2026, Joel? What is your take on
Probably
this
not. I mean, if we solve the space inference, maybe we'll get there, but I don't think it will happen in 2026. Maybe like when I get back to the Christmas edition next year, 2027 might be the year of AGI. But 2026, we're still a bit away from it. We still need a lot more compute. We still need a lot more power, and we don't currently have it. We cannot make GPUs fast enough. We cannot make memory fast enough, and we certainly can't produce power fast enough to power both the AI and, the needs of the people. Or I don't think any sane government that will stay in power will divert 100% of their energy into AI without facing consequences in the elections. So I think we will have it in the future. Maybe, probably not next year.
Okay, but that's a solid take. Well argumented. Whatever AGI really is, there's many different arrays of definitions. What artificial, general, or super intelligent, I mean, AGI or super intelligence really is. I do believe 2026 might be the first time ever where humans are being outsmarted by an entity that is smarter, really smarter than humans. Basically, I was thinking a lot about this the other day. I was like, until now, we can always kind of trick ChatGPT to do some stupid answer, right? So we can prompt it in a way, or we can ask a particular question. But I think maybe 2026, large language models are going to be trained on Blackwell's, the latest NVIDIA technology, because the ones today, they're being trained on some old tech. The 2026 models will be trained on the latest NVIDIA tech. Might actually be really the case where we have some 400 IQ LLM or something, and we don't really know what that really means. Like, what does it actually mean to have an entity or an intelligent being, or whatever? It's basically a transformer that is super intelligent, that is literally 2, 3, 4x more intelligent than a human. I think that's the first time we're ever beknownst to the human existence, we're actually seeing this happen. So that's a little bit, I don't know if it's AGI or probably not, most likely, but it's certainly something that's incredibly intelligent. It's certainly something we can ask anything we possibly want, and it most likely can do many, many things that we are yet to be surprised by. And again, it's just a matter of how do we deploy it, engineer it safely, make it observable, make it auditable, not that we lose track of all these agents running around in 2026. But that's a little bit my take.
I think there will be like that inflection point where as soon as you have an LLM or some kind of model that's smart enough to make itself better, or at least like 95% autonomously, like it might need some input from humans, might need humans to plug some cables around, but as soon as it can solve some mathematics problems and solve some coding problems, and it can basically code a new, better version of itself, even if it's only substantial, then that's the inflection point where the growth is quite probably exponential, and then you have an increasingly smarter and better LLM, increasingly smart and better AI, even if it's not in the LLM format. It just enters a whole new realm. So as soon as you go into that inflection point, we will have a very interesting couple of months and years. I hope it doesn't happen in 2026 yet, because we are certainly not ready for it. So I know we will see it eventually. Hopefully,
maybe not next year. Maybe not next year. I mean, I completely agree with you. Once this is happening, I think this is going to be again, changing the entire world. At the same time, we have to make sure we kind of have some sort of control around on this conundrum. Okay, so that's the episode. We're looking ahead into the future. First of all, this was the 40th episode. So to everybody in the audience that's been sticking around, be it, for example, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on TikTok, much appreciated your reviews. I think if we combined all the views together, we reached around 1 million views in 2025, which is a great number. And we try to, of course, double that in accordance to the scaling laws also in the podcasting world. Today was a bit of more a relaxed episode. But definitely we are back in early January 2020. An array of topics. We're looking into skill engineering. We're looking into Excel AI agents, of course. MCP is probably also taking a return on the podcast. We're here and there covering some financial numbers as well, ideally, or at least some finance corners we will be doing without financial advice. I know.
I was going to ask if you're going to put the disclaimer at the beginning, middle, or end of the episodes saying, I know, the content is for general education and information purposes only. Do not take the accounts into the needs of like individual or commercials, like financial situation. So take this advice as basically information around the world of AI and not directly into stocks, because we're not legally obliged to have your best interests in mind. That's just the disclaimer I got from the internet. Maybe it'll hold up in court. Hopefully no one sues us.
Absolutely.
We don't have the lawyers for it.
I think it should be fine. We didn't really talk too much about specific companies other than mentioning 4 times Google. But yes, no
and
financial
Micron
advice.
and a few others, yeah.
Exactly. So it should be fine. Great to have you, Joao. I wish you a good Christmas break. To everybody in the audience, happy festive days. Happy New Year already, 2026. And next year will be once again the year. So we are going to be shooting another probably 50 some episodes next year. Looking forward to seeing you a lot more, Joao, next year. And yeah, have a good one to everybody and bye-bye.
Have a good one. Happy holidays.